All right, guys, so I just filmed my entire X-Men rant. We didn't do the audio for it. So it's probably gonna be a lot more on point. So I wanna tell you why Hickman's X-Men run is actually amazing. And me, as an anti-X-Men fan, disliked the X-Men, but now I'm willing to read it all again. And I wanna tell you that if you're sleeping on the Hickman run, you need to get on board. And that is what today's video is all about. What you're missing out on the X-Men if you're one of the few people not reading it. But before we can get into that, I have to explain to you why I disliked the X-Men to begin with, but still love them. So the X-Men came to prominence and fame back in the 90s, early 2000s era with the X-Men animated TV show and the Chris Claremont run. And they became known for a very core team: Cyclops, Jean, Wolverine, Morph, all these different characters. But the problem is that's not who the X-Men are. The X-Men were created as a way to tell stories about racism and segregation and problems with basically someone being slightly different than you, but the government hating on them and trying to basically separate them. It was a great way to tell these stories without taking direct stabs at situations that were going on, like civil rights and stuff like that. But you could tell your own story with people who can grow claws or have laser beams. It's a great idea, and on paper it works for a couple of stories. The problem with the X-Men is circular storytelling. And if you don't know what circular storytelling is, it's when we tell the exact same story with minor differences and changes. So an example of the X-Men is that every time the X-Men save the world, save the planet, work with the Avengers, and the very next story arc, they're telling Professor Xavier that muties need to be locked up and thrown away and that no one can trust them, even though we just saved the entire planet. They reference this in Avengers vs. X-Men, when Cyclops talks to Captain America and literally says, "We've saved the world with you, but people still hate us." A more recognizable and more obvious version of this storytelling is actually Batman. Batman, for many of his arcs, won't trust the entire Bat family, keeping secrets from them, not telling them what's going on. At the end of the arc, he discovers that this whole thing could have been resolved if he had just trusted Nightwing, or just told Damian what's going on, or just worked with Batgirl on a much better aspect. And then the very next storyline, he's not telling them anything, and he's keeping all the secrets. It's circular storytelling. And X-Men is a huge component of that because they had the same stories. I never outright disliked the X-Men. I love reading stories about Cyclops or Wolverine. But whenever the X-Men themselves got together, and it was the X-Men core book, we would tell the story of how the X-Men are hated by humankind because they gain powers that are uncontrollable. That humans don't know if these X-Men are going to be evil or good, or if they're going to be heroes or villains. But the problem with the X-Men is that concept doesn't work in the Marvel Universe. Not after the first couple of stories. You have the Avengers, characters with unknown amounts of power. We have characters like Moon Knight, Blade, Thor. We have a God of Thunder that humans just trust with no questions at all. Oh, it's the Avengers. They're going to save the day. We have the Fantastic Four, guys who got their abilities from a cosmic rays out in space, but we just trust them. It's a constant problem of how can you trust this group of people, but you don't trust this group of people. And I get it. That's the point of the racism allegories and stuff like that. But when that story is constantly told over and over and over, what ends up happening is we all sit around going, well, this version of the story is great. These all suck. And if you don't agree with that, for the last 10 years or so, X-Men, for the most part, have been retelling that story, and sales have gone down and down and down. While you may be that big X-Men fan who's been on there since the beginning, no one can deny that things like X-Men Red or All New X-Men over time just overstayed their welcome and fans weren't buying into the books. That brings us to today's discussion, why Hickman's run is amazing. So there's two problems, there's two things going on here with Hickman's run. There's the why it's awesome, but why it's so nonsensical and sucks. So Hickman is well known as an amazing writer. But the problem with Jonathan Hickman's writing is he goes for the long con, he goes for the long story, right? The two biggest things that people know him for are his Fantastic Four run and his Avengers/New Avengers run. Both of those ended incredibly. But until we got to those last 2 or 3 issues, no one knew what the hell was going on. Every week was everyone sitting around going, wow, these characters are acting out of character. Wow, this doesn't make any sense. What the hell's gonna happen here? Why did Doctor Strange just mass murder an entire planet? Questions like this were presented during his run. When it's concluded, we all revere it as an amazing run. And I can't tell if that's what Hickman is doing this time. So, the X-Men this time around have decided we're done dealing with humankind not trusting us. We're done. Oh, yeah, well, before we get into that, I just want to, I mentioned this in the previous video and I want to make a mention of it here. The biggest reason why the X-Men don't work is not only do we already have the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, but the Inhumans. Literally the Inhumans. The humans trust the Inhumans, and they are the exact same thing as the X-Men. I just wanted to put that out there. The only big difference between the Inhumans and the X-Men is that the Inhumans get it from a mist and then it happens at puberty, and the X-Men, it just happens at puberty. That's the difference. Like, you still have villains that are inhuman, we still have heroes that are inhuman, we still have mutants that are villains and heroes. It's the exact same concept. As a matter of fact, when Fox wouldn't give back the rights to the X-Men, that's why the Inhumans became important, because even Marvel was like, we have another group that does the same thing. What the Inhumans didn't have was a 1990s cartoon show and a revered run by Chris Claremont that made them famous. That's what they don't have. So anyway, what Hickman is doing now is he's decided to throw out everything you would expect from an X-Men run. Instead of being pushed aside by the humankind, going to Genosha and then having Genosha blown up, the X-Men have now created their own island where they have their own government, they have their own mythology, they have their own prophecies, they have their own doctors and lawyers and everything. The X-Men have basically created their own world within the Marvel Universe. You could easily confuse this for being an alternate universe in the Marvel multiverse. That's how separate it is from everything, to the point where you need special gates to get there. They can revive their own dead and stuff like that. Now, what the storyline is about is, yes, the Inhumans don't trust us, but we don't care anymore. Here's where the X-Men are, and this is where we can be happy, and we're sending in black ops groups to go figure out what's going on with the US government. Over here, Magneto is having a treaty discussion with Apocalypse and the heads of the nations. Over here, we've discovered a way to resurrect our own dead. And over here, we're gonna start looking at all the loose plot threads from the X-Men mythology that has been forgotten about. Like characters like Phantomex in this universe that grows on its own, or the moon base and stuff like that. What Hickman has decided to do is just take the idea that the humans hate the X-Men and just ignore it. And the X-Men don't care anymore. And he's telling amazing stories. I finally sat down and read X-Men 1 through 12, X-Force 1 through 10, 11-ish, Wolverine, Fallen Angels, and on my list is Marauders, Excalibur, and all these other books. And on one hand, I read some of these stories and go, what the hell is happening? This makes no sense. My favorite characters are gone. Where are you, X-23? Come out of the goddamn vault. You know, things like that. There's solo issues where I'm like, why is the Horticulture a group of old women fighting Cyclops? And then you have issues where I go, why are these two islands banging? I've said it multiple times. You all think I'm joking. There is an issue with two islands banging. I'm not joking. At first you look at these going, wow, this is dumb, this is stupid. What is he even trying to do? But as he has been going on, you're starting to see the bigger picture. You're starting to see the creation of new villains. You're starting to see loose hanging threads in the X-Men mythology being answered. You're starting to see questions brought up like, well, okay, why do these people accept us and these people don't? Why is Apocalypse and Magneto fighting against each other? They should be working together. Right. And then they can just agree with Professor X and now we have a government. Right, that all makes sense. How do we fix the House of M situation? That was one of my favorite issues that explained how we're gonna fix the fact that Wanda got rid of most mutants, but the way they did it was dumb. I don't like how they did it. But at least they addressed the fact we're missing most of the mutants, and they're like, oh, we can fix that. Totally can do that, no problems at all. Hope that clap didn't get picked up too loud. But you know what I'm saying. I guess what I'm getting at is if you are like me and you just got sick and tired of the X-Men, you got tired of Marvel ignoring them because of the Fox deal, you got tired of the X-Men just being the same circular storytelling, this is their big moment. They are finally telling a new story that is incredible. And if you want to know what X of Swords is, if you want to know where to jump in on the X-Men, if you're like, okay, I don't really want to read 100-something issues to get to here, go into X of Swords. Read that first. It's going on right now. You can go to your local comic book store. You can check it out. It's pretty much a tournament arc. All your favorite mutants are fighting with swords. That's what it boils down to. And if you like it and you like this different style of storytelling, go check out X-Men 1 through 12. It's about, I'd say, 8 different storylines because what they do is like 2 to 3 issue arcs and they resolve them. Go check out X-Force. It's 6 issues at the very beginning where we find Domino, we find out what's going on with Wolverine, and oh my God, do they just like maul everyone around them. Go check these storylines out. You're going to enjoy it because it's not what you would expect, but they are using some of your favorite X-Men. We're also not getting shoehorned in with stupid X-Men we don't want. Like there's Wolverine and Domino. That's what I freaking want. There's Cyclops with his kids. That's what I freaking want. There's Professor X walking with a helmet. I don't know what that is. We're hoping to get answers eventually. And I really hope that the eyes mean something, because if the eyes don't mean something, then that was a wasted opportunity. But I think you get what I'm saying at this point. At this point, I'm just going to be ranting and raving. I've become an X-Men fan, and after we catch up in a few other Marvel storylines, I'm going to start bringing you guys Mutant Mondays again. We're going to start doing X-Men storylines and telling that whole arc as it is. We're also working on an Ultimate Universe storyline. So basically, that's why I'm wrapping up Miss Marvel, Avengers, Miles, and when those are all done, if you're still here at this channel, you're going to be getting Mutant Mondays, and we're going to tell you the story of what's going on in the mutants. And we're going to tell you what's going on over in the Ultimate Universe, which is coming back, but that's a totally different rant, and we'll get to that one another day. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoy videos like this, let me know in the comments down below. If you're worried about getting complete stories, don't worry. We try to put out a complete story every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 a week, other than some, once in a while we get like hiccups because of real life stuff. But 5 a week, complete stories. So thank you so much for your continued support. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time at my next review, which is going to be about Joker War and why the circular storytelling ruined an amazing story.